and welcome back to another episode of Off the Beaten Path. Today we're traveling to Beaver Dam, Wisconsin to visit the home studio of Wayne Salzmann. Wayne is an extremely active touring and recording drummer with artists like Eric Johnson and Bob Snyder. He's also a dedicated educator whose work can be seen with Hudson Music, Vic Firth, and Zildjian. I think his career arc really demonstrates how essential versatility is in order to find success in the music industry today, and I really appreciated hearing how his career has changed over the last few years as he started his family and settled into a new home base. Before we dive in, I want to remind you that I'm creating new episodes in this series each month, so make sure to subscribe to my channel to stay up to date on those future releases. So without any further delay, let's check out the home studio of Wayne Salzmann.
Yo!
Hey Wayne, how you doing?
I'm good. Come on in. Watch out for the Hot Wheels ramp here. This is where I practice and do rehearsals and record from home. Right now, a couple different kits set up. I have a bebop kit because tonight I'm playing a jazz gig with my quartet. Then on Friday, I'm playing a gig. It's like a modern country gig. So this is kind of the setup for that right now. I've got like bigger drums tuned down, SPD-SX with a bunch of programmed sounds for some of the electronic things on that gig. I've got my recording set up over here and my mics and cables and stands and all that stuff. It's not set up right now for recording because I'm sort of in rehearsal mode. Then after that gig on Friday, I leave at 5 in the morning, Saturday morning, to go to Austin, Texas to do rehearsals for the G3 tour with Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and Eric Johnson. So it's kind of prep mode here, doing some local gigs, hitting the road soon. So I lived in Austin for like about 15 years. I did my master's degree there at UT, and then I got hired on the jazz faculty at UT. So I taught on the faculty there for 12 years. It's a good place if you want to be just playing all the time and you know, working on getting better, playing different styles of music. It's a good scene for it. But you know, at the same time, there are great musicians here. Like I live in the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin now, which is kind of where I grew up. And I'm still able to play. Like I'm playing with great jazz players tonight and playing with great country players on Friday. And then I'll hit the road and do like a national touring thing. So for me, variety is the spice of life. I've always really enjoyed the versatility that I was able to kind of curate through learning different styles and trying to play as authentically as possible in those styles. So that's always been the thing for me, is that I don't just play bebop, or I don't just play rock or whatever it is. I try to play all different stuff because it keeps it really interesting for me, and also I think it's a little easier to be employed that way. I first started playing with Eric in 2011, so it's been a while, and I toured with him for a number of years. And then I stopped going on the road when my daughter was born, and now I'm back on the road now that the kids are older, touring a little bit more now, which is a different deal. Touring from here, it takes more flights, and there's more travel time, and I have to fly in for rehearsals and stuff like that, as opposed to just driving across town. But I'm glad to be able to have a balance and have a situation with my wife where she can kind of, and my in-laws and my family and everything can sort of help with the kids when I'm on the road, which if we were still in Austin, we would have no family there, and maybe it would be harder for me to go on the road. We came to Wisconsin not knowing that we were going to move back here. We were just trying to get help with the kids at the beginning of the pandemic. So I was teaching online from here for a number of years, actually, before I ended up resigning from that position. Being able to teach online, I have a couple of different setups. I can do a full mic'd up setup with like a lav mic or with a speaking vocal mic, or I can do just a laptop, or I can put my phone here, and it just sort of depends on the situation. But I'm set up to teach and to record remotely here, so like I can still do session work with my friends who I worked with for years in Austin, but I can do it here. The drums that I play on the road, I have a DW collector's kit that's in Texas, in the road cases right now. I have my DW kit there that I use for a lot of local gigs. Kind of my little snare collection here. So depending on what the music is, I'll change up the drums, you know. It's not quite the same vibe trying to play a rock kit on a bebop, play a rock gig on a bebop kit that's tuned like that. You know, sometimes you just need a little beef and you need like that response from the drums when you can hit a little harder. That being said, you know, like that kit is 2012, 16. I've played that on all kinds of stuff, like everything from pop and rock gigs to like jazz gigs or, you know, heavier hitting. I've played that in big, huge venues, and I've played it in the corner of restaurants, you know. I'll walk you through a couple of things. One of my hobbies that I really developed in the pandemic was woodworking. So I decided to like build, this was the first thing I made, which is just a shelf for all my cymbals. And I sort of stole the idea from, at the Zildjian factory, they have these carts where they have angled 2x4s, and they put all kinds of cymbals on those carts and move them around to different rooms. And so I took that idea because I wanted to, first of all, keep the cymbals off the ground, because we're in a basement in Wisconsin where it can potentially flood. This house is 64 years old, and so there's a possibility that some moisture can get in. So I wanted to keep stuff off the floor that you know, that could potentially get wet. Like I built it in a way where like I put the cross brace here low enough that a small cymbal like this splash cymbal here can be supported when it's in there. And I set this one up so that 14-inch hi-hats can rest against it. So that was sort of the first thing I built, and then I just kind of kept going. I found some great deals on like this material. I bought this piece, a bunch of these big, flat, already finished pieces from IKEA for $3 a piece. And so then I just cut them up and glued them together, put this on wheels. So this is all my mic stands. These are actually drumsticks. So the top row is all the front end of old used beat up drumsticks, and then the butt end down here. And that just helps me keep my cables and some of my little percussion stuff organized.
I think that's the most creative use for old drumsticks I've seen, because I have a whole box of old sticks that...
We all do. That's the thing, is I had these sitting in a bin, and like the tips are soft, you know, they're not, I don't really break sticks, but I play them a lot until they get kind of worn out. So, you know, they were done. So I decided to use them in a cool, creative way. And then the most recent thing here is I just built this snare shelf. So there was a local sawmill that had some live edge wood. And so I had some pieces of thick, long cedar cuts that just sat for years. I didn't know. And as a matter of fact, my kids picked this wood out for me. This is a good example here, if you can see that color. They picked it out for me because they said it looked like bacon wood. And they know that I like bacon. So they picked out the bacon wood boards. They wanted me to get that. So I measured it out so that I could do drums sitting as opposed to upright.
Yeah.
And I made it deep enough where I could fit an 8-inch drum or like an 8-inch tom in there. And then, speaking of drumsticks, all these are connected with dowels made from old drumsticks. So that's the way the supports are all actually fastened together. This is sort of the main spot, and I'll move, sometimes I'll have a jazz kit over here because my interface is here. So I'll run all my cables, set up my mics, and do that. I'll put my laptop up here for online lessons, or you know, I'll leave it here if I'm tracking so that I can start and stop. So yeah, I can do at-home sessions here, and I have more baffles that I can put around if I need them. But right now, this is like a pretty I redid the ceiling in here, and it's got a little bit of like soundproofing. But mostly I built these baffles, and it's a good amount of dead versus live in here. Like, I don't know how well you can tell, and this will probably pick up in the lab, but like you can hear a little bit of stuff. And also I can open that up a little bit because I have a couple different options for rooms. Like there's an unfinished room here that we'll get into in a little bit. That's the workshop. So I can place a mic over there and get a whole bunch of real reverb from that room if I need more wetness in the mix. I almost always wear headphones when I'm down here, even if I'm just playing for a little bit, because I think hearing protection is incredibly important for drummers. My parents were real sticklers about make sure you have earplugs or headphones or whatever, and I've been able to have a career been playing for over 30 years now, and I haven't had any hearing loss, thankfully, because I do wear this stuff. As opposed to much higher tuning. So I like to be able to kind of switch gears quickly between those two things because, like I said, it'll be sometimes in the same day I'll have a little light trio gig and then go play a rock show at night, you know. If I'm recording jazz in here, I'm doing overheads. I'm not close miking the toms necessarily. I'm doing like overheads and like a FET mic out here probably, and, you know, capturing more of the room sound of the drums. Or in some instances, literally playing one mic. Whereas over here, like on a kit like this is closer. These are pretty much the sizes of the kit that I use on the road with Eric. And so I know those drums are gonna be close mic'd. And so I know there's a certain like amount of sustain that is going to be ideal for those microphones in a big room. So like, for instance, you can see those floor tom legs are flipped because that's like one of the tricks that I do. Modern floor tom legs, especially like the DW ones where they're down and straight out and then straight down, like 90-degree angles, those are designed for maximum resonance. So when you hit the drum acoustically, it's this big, beautiful sound and it sustains. However, when you put a close mic on that and it goes through the house, PA, typically, you're gonna get boo, and it's gonna create a feedback loop. So you need to have some ways to dry up the sustain on that. Some people will put, well, you can put tape on the drum head, top or bottom. You can put like a muffler of any kind. I have a bunch of different kinds of mufflers. You can put a gel or like those rings. There's a bunch of different kinds of rings. Some people will put cotton balls inside the drum. Sometimes I'll do different combinations of all those things, or I'll flip the leg because it minimizes the transfer of energy to the ground and it minimizes the resonance that way. So it just automatically shortens up the sound. And so I like to have it, even though it's not close mic'd right now, I like that amount of resonance because that's what I'm gonna have live on the gigs coming up, you know. So I like it to kind of feel how it's gonna be. Same thing with like the cymbal choice. I'll use cymbals that are kind of in the same vein. Like these aren't even hi-hats, these are 16-inch crash cymbals. But for the music I'm playing on Friday, that's the sound. You can hear in the recordings that the drummer's playing big hi-hats, definitely bigger than 14s. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but so I'm like making all these choices, and I realize I'm fortunate to have these choices, having lots of different snare drums and different types of drums and different sizes of drums. Not everybody has that, and I get it. But I've dedicated my life to doing this. Every dollar I've ever made in my life ever has been from playing or teaching music. So I put that money back into my craft and make sure that I have enough gear that's appropriate for the situation. Like this being a great example, this is the newest thing I got because I needed it for this gig. And granted, this isn't a one-off gig. There are more things where I'll be, running tracks and sequencing and playing. Like primarily, I'm using this to play electronic sounds. But that was just part of the gig, so it was an expense that I had to make the music right. My kids are 5 and 7, so they're pretty little, and they ever since they were little, like could barely even before they could walk, I would like set a bass drum on its side so they could like hold on to the hoops and like hit it with a brush or something, you know? So they've been around drums their whole life. They love the drums, they love to play. So I decided to put together a little hodgepodge kit for the kids. And there's not even a throne that will go low enough. I built this cajon, and I just flip it on its side and it's nice and low for them to be able to play. And then I have like, some of this is totally rigged up. Like this is a throne base. And I put the tom mount on the throne base because I just could not get this low enough. And of course, the kids have to wear their headphones whenever they're playing. This bass drum sounds great. I mean, it's like a full sound. It was a 16-inch floor tom in super rough condition. So I finally decided to clean it up, took everything off, sanded it down, and then it turns out there's this like beautiful wood grain. So this is 16 by 12, and it just happened to work out that way where I could cut it and cut past the old lugs, drill for the new lugs, and I redid the bearing edges and everything. And actually, just like we did on this kit. So yeah. Mike helped me. This was an 18-inch floor tom, a 70s Gretsch. I had this round badge kit, 12, 14-inch snare, and then the 20-inch bass drum right there. But I really wanted an 18 to be able to tune up a little higher and play bebop. So Mike actually cut this shell down for me, redid the bearing edges, and got hoops for it, re-drilled the lugs, did the same situation.
And I remember there were a couple holes we didn't plug up when I was working on it, but I think you even used drumsticks to plug those.
I did, so you can see one right here. There was a hole from the previous mount that was on there. And so I plugged that with a drumstick, cut it to size, glued it in there, and then I used my daughter's nail polish to match the finish. It's not 100% perfect, but man, it's pretty close. Some hard cases here because I just find like, once again, it's about having the right equipment for the gig. So like you get a call to do a gig where the drums are going in a trailer, you better have some hard cases. You can't put your soft cases in a trailer, your stuff will get trashed. So, you know, I have that for kind of like a local road gig or whatever, and then I have like big, huge anvil cases that I use for tours where we're on the road, you know, with a drum tech where I'm out for months at a time, that kind of thing, because having it all in one case with casters, pushing it up the ramp into the venue is much easier than one person taking 6 trips to carry all the drums, you know, so it's just a more practical thing for that level of touring. In town, kind of in the area, I use mostly soft cases. So, you know, I have some other drums here in soft cases. I've got a little kit right here in soft cases. Fly cymbal case, there's a fly cymbal case over there. My old leather cymbal bag that I've had for 20 years or something. Here is the unfinished part of the basement. So this was really the thing that first got me sort of hooked on woodworking. I just started doing little tiny projects like making pens and stuff like that. I bought this old Craftsman lathe, and then from there I kind of got into like, I bought chop saw, which I use more for like kind of construction type things. And then recently upgraded, thanks to my wife, to a saw stop table saw where I feel much more comfortable using my fingers that I use to make a living. Just kind of built it up one piece at a time. Like there were certain projects where I needed a drill press. You might recognize this, this same wood, $3 from IKEA. I built this router table. So like this is the router table that I use to do bearing edges on drum shells. And then my sanding, I mostly do all the way back in there because sanding sucks and it's dirty, you know? Yeah. So I just try to keep it away. My love for drums is like coupled with my interest in my love for different types of wood and learning about how it works and, you know, just like how wood dries and how it moves and all this different stuff. It all comes into play with like the quality of a drum shell, you know, or why a bearing edge works the way that it does, sonically speaking, because of the actual way that it was cut, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having us and showing us a little bit of your world today.
Absolutely.
And before we sign off, where can people follow you to see what you're doing, come see you on tour? Or...
Yeah, so my social media is all just my name, Wayne Salzmann. My website is waynesalzmann.com. You can contact me through there. I do teach lots of lessons online and in person as well. You can find my book on Amazon or digitally through Hudson Music. And yeah, I'll be on the road. I'm leaving here in a couple days. I'll be on the West Coast till the middle of February touring with G3. So if anybody's in that area, come on out. And then otherwise I'll be kind of mostly regional for a while, teaching and playing around here. So feel free to give a shout online or if you come to a show, come say hey.
All right, thanks again.
You bet.